Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our solar and DER update webinar. I am going to pass this over to Larry Alston, who's going to get us started. And Larry Delaney is going to go through the slides, so just let us know when you're ready.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our solar and DER update webinar. Hopefully this summer is going well for everyone that's on the webinar today. Looks like we have north of 80 folks tuned in, and I assume that maybe some folks are in conference rooms as well. But my name is Larry Alston. I am the Director of Business and Customer Support, leading our solar and DER business here at PHI, which is Pepco, Atlanta City Electric, as well as Delmarva Power. Next slide. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to be as precise as possible. Thank you for those that submitted questions in advance of this particular webinar. As we move through the information, I believe many of your questions will be answered. And if we do not answer those questions, there will be an opportunity to send us follow-up questions after the webinar. But here's the agenda. We're going to touch on our PHI solar program updates, particularly the Maryland Community Solar program, as well as some other process improvements that are in flight. You'll receive some engineering updates. Some will be pretty technical, and some will just be talking about the organization and things like that. And then the last two items here are the subscription management updates, some exciting things going on when it comes to subscription management in the organization. And then we have a few FAQs that we will go through. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So first, I just want to start just kind of talking through some exciting news. As of January the 15th of this year, we revamped our solar business, and we now have a centrally managed solar organization. Within that organization, if you're following the slide from left to right, we have the GPC strategy and program management team that's led by Alex. Next, we have the DER engineering and project execution team that's led by Ranjit. And then we have billing and quality controls that's led by Sonia. And we also have solar tech and edge system support that is led by Walt Steffi. In these particular verticals, just a few bullets here to just provide some insight into the scope of work. The first, under Alex's organization, they're focused on application processing, as well as interconnection agreements, driving accuracy and completeness. As you all know, in our various jurisdictions, we either have the regs or standards being looked at, working groups going on, and things like that. So we have a team that's focused on oversight of our jurisdictional program strategies, regulatory requirements, as well as a focus on legislative changes, partnering with all of our external stakeholders. The next vertical is engineering and project execution. And, the technical review process, that's in scope for this particular team. Also taking care of escalated developer inquiries that come in through C2G, and then supporting our interconnection specialists. This team is also the engineering group that was at one point spread across the PHI organization, reporting to various directors. So this group now reports into the centrally managed solar organization under my leadership, and ran just the senior manager there. There's some opportunities here that we think this will improve our scoping process as well as our estimating and design process as well. In terms of billing and quality controls, in terms of the net energy metering billing exceptions, this team focuses on that work, and then also the subscription management and managing a relationship with the subscriber organizations, as well as other complex billing scenarios. And then last here is our technology. We have a ton of systems that we're leveraging. The C2G, we're also taking a look at automation so that we can get look at opportunities to get applications through the process faster, kind of reducing some of our repetitive functions, and then as well as oversight of some of our large scale projects. The Covella solution comes to mind, Connect the Grid, as well as our community solar portal. So exciting times. We have the one organization together now with all of the various disciplines reporting to a single director. Next slide, please. Just wanted to provide just some data around the application timelines at a high level. Also talk a little bit about what we see as common status delays, which is a narrative that we own and that we have several improvements in flight to help improve the framework here. But if I just focus on just some of the metrics here, and we're just looking at 2024 compared to 2025. If you look to the column to the right, you can see that we are so far year to date seeing some improvement in our level 1, level 2, as well as our acknowledgement metrics in terms of being what we call on time. So there's plenty of work that needs to continue. We are not short of exceptions, but we are working our way up the curve. And when I say exceptions, I'll give you an example in the level 2, where you see for 2025, 78%, where our team is spending the energy is what's going on with that other 22%. And that's how we're driving continuous improvement across the business. Level 3 and level 4 projects, we are actively working on the appropriate baseline when it comes to that portion of our portfolio. And in the coming webinars, you'll start to see kind of where we are and where we're working towards when it comes to that portion of our portfolio. In terms of common status delays, I'm just going to touch on a few of those, and then I'm going to touch on some improvements in the initiative space that we think that we believe and confident that's going to help us get up the curve here. In terms of technical review, in some forms you hear feasibility study. So one of the things that causes a delay is the distribution upgrades and determining cost estimates. Right, so we are working on some processes to improve that. In some of our jurisdictions, in order to be accurate, we're requesting field verifications, and when we request a field verification, the time that it takes to do that has the potential to lead to delays. There is the process around conditionally approved, so cost generation and execution of the cost letter and invoice generation. We have some projects in flight right now that will reduce the turnaround time for invoice generations. We're probably maybe 6 to 9 months away from the technology improving that process, but we are looking at some minimal viable products, some MVP solutions that will help us get up the curve even faster before the technology is implemented. In terms of ATIs with upgrades required, delays in upgrade construction, which are contingent on sometimes there's long lead materials. We're impacted as well by unscheduled outages and weather. So we have we have a team in place that is actively looking at managed outages and how we get more transparency into outages that might impact projects and their timelines. Part two submissions, we do, see challenges at time with signatures and as-built documents and inspection certificates. So we are taking a look at that as well to see if there's an opportunity for us to expedite or improve the quality control around some of the as-built documents we receive or the inspection certificates. Meter exchanges, again, delays with meter exchanges can cause challenges as well. And so we're actively working with our metering department to work down that pain point as well. So there's probably about 5 or 6 big buckets here that that cause a challenge and can continue to cause delays. In terms of the improvements, we consolidated the tech review from 3 engineering departments into 1 DER engineering team as a part of this centrally managed organization. And then we've also are rolling out automation of our technical review for small residential interconnection applications that are unlikely to require upgrades. We expect that to significantly improve the timeline, again, for small residential interconnection applications. I know that's been a pain point as I've been out doing, and the team, we've been out doing road shows and participating in different external forums. Also streamlining the internal visibility, again, of upgrade construction milestone statuses. We just need to gain that insight where projects spend most of their time doing project execution. And as we identify those areas where projects are getting stuck, it gives us an opportunity to take a look back and see what we can do to make improvements there. We're also daily monitoring progress towards the on-time completion rates. I mentioned earlier that we take a look at, that other 28% or 22% to see why we missed the on-time percent, and then put some improvements in place. So currently the teams have morning calls, evening calls, as well as a weekly touch point focused on improving the on-time completion rates at various ATI at various levels for ATI as well as ATL or PTL. Excuse me. Project management and engineering and the engineering organization are positioned in one department now. In the past, those were separate departments. So now we have our DER or solar project management organization, as well as the engineering group, all reporting to the same senior manager in Ranjit's organization, which improves the communication, also is an opportunity to expedite responding to questions or inquiries we may receive. We also have dedicated interconnection specialists across the team working down our backlog of Part 2 submissions. And then we continue to educate developers on the required Part 2 documentation to avoid resubmissions. And then last, I'll say is, we've established some internal milestones, which will allow sufficient time for media exchanges to occur during the 20-day regulatory timeline when required. So really excited, one, about the new organization, the opportunities that we have to collaborate across various disciplines that impact the end-to-end process here. Next slide. Yeah, so this is our residential solar welcome kit. You know, it's kind of what's going well. Earlier this year, we rolled out a communication tool that allows us to communicate with the developers as well as customers simultaneously, right? So it kind of serves two purposes. Proactively helps customers understand what they can expect as they go through the end-to-end process, with a solar project. We've since it started in January, we've had over 4,000 emails that have been sent to date. And from the data that we've received from those surveys, 91% of customers are satisfied with the email content. And we see improved satisfaction with project customers, with 89% being satisfied in the residential space. So again, just want to thank, all the developers in the community and everyone for their partnership. This is this is what I like to call one of the what's going well moments as it pertains to the residential solar space. Next slide. This is some detail around the email series. So the first thing that customers receive is welcome to your solar experience, which provides an overview of the solar journey. Then there is an example. You'll get a solar project update, letting customers know that the project is in technical review. And then once the project has been approved to install, the customers will receive an email that says you've been approved. And once the Part 2 submittal process is complete, customers will get an email that confirms that they passed the inspection, and then the in-service email, what to expect next. So this is just an example of, what we've done to improve the overall process. Since one of the things that we've done to improve the communication that went into effect in January. Next slide, please. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Denise and Holly, and they will move to the next segment of the webinar. Thank you all for your attention.
Great, thanks, Larry. My name is Denise Nardozzi, and I'm the Senior Business Program Manager with oversight of the Maryland Community Solar Program for DPL and for PEPCO. Next slide. Next slide. So here's some notable impacts for Maryland Community Solar Permanent Program. As you all know or may know, is that the permanent program was implemented on March 6th of this year, and we had 20 DPL projects receive a queue position. At that time, we did not have any for PEPCO. We had 0, as there were none that were waitlisted on the pilot program. Then another notable change from pilot to permanent is that there is now no category or capacity max. However, there is a Maryland has a 3,000 megawatt NEM and community solar goal. Another notable impact is that for CSEG's acceptance, projects may use the CPCN or the CPCN completeness check as part of their required documents. In addition, subscriber organizations, SOs, may partner with subscribing coordinators authorized subscriber coordinators, I should say, to act on their behalf to facilitate credit allocations. Lastly, LMI customer eligibility will continue to be verified and managed by the SOs. Next slide. Review of Maryland CSEG's program requirements. So SO numbers must first be received by the PSC before applying. There's no change there. Proof of site control, CPSCN, or CPCN completeness must be provided. Conditional approval must be received before added to the CSEG's queue. Projects not operational within 24 months of your CSEG acceptance date can request a 12-month extension and must pay $50 per KW, which is a refundable deposit to stay on the queue. Now, projects not energized within 36 months shall be removed from the program. Next slide. Next slide. So here are some program improvements. Some of this Larry alluded to in his opening, but specifically around community solar, PHI manages 3 customer inboxes. So we've improved some various protocols and communication for, tighter oversight and response times. We also have in the process of revising our application form. Our CSIGS application will soon be uploaded as a PDF editable document to the website and will reflect changes made from the pilot to the permanent program. That should be happening within the next week or so. In addition, we have website enhancements in the works that Maryland Community Solar will be kind of the template for these improvements. And then we will also cascade to all the other jurisdictions' websites as well. And to these enhancements, we are adding more Q&A. We're going to, add some automation where there's a fit, better navigation. So stay tuned to that for those improvements as well. Next slide. Here are some commonly received community solar questions. Where can I find my interconnection or community solar program queues? Here's the links. How can I verify that my project coordinates are served by PHI? Please submit a pre-application for further review. Are engineering studies always required for community solar projects? Now, due to the size of community solar projects, we must, review any potential impacts to the grid that such project of size could impact. Once they're complete, a technical review will be performed. PHI will conduct an engineering study to evaluate any estimate to the distribution system upgrades and see if that is necessary to continue with whether or not there is an engineering study required or not. On the right are on the left-hand side are the 3 inboxes that I had spoken about that we manage as a resource. And other than that, I am going to pass this on to Holly. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Denise, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Holly Mitra. I am the manager of DER Interconnections for the PEPCO region. So my team is responsible for application processing, and I have 2 slides for you today around process updates during the application process. So this first one is really more of a process clarification. And so this is specific to applications that are fully executed interconnection agreements and are in service. So for applications that fall into those categories and the current facility owner is looking for PHI to provide written confirmation of that change in facility ownership, then here is kind of a clarification on what that process looks like in 3 simple steps. So the first step is if this applies to you, please go ahead and email us or contact us through the C2G portal our email addresses are listed here. If it's for Pepco interconnections, that's the GPC South mailbox. And if it's for ACE and DPL interconnections, that's the NEM at Pepco Holdings mailbox. You can contact us through any of those three ways to let us know that this is something that you would like to have. And please, though, when you are submitting that request, to have the quickest turnaround time possible, it would be extremely helpful if you could include the bill of sale documents with that notification, as that will be a requirement before we can proceed to step 2. And so step 2 here is laying out that we will provide you, after we review your bill of sale documentation, an interconnection agreement change notice form. And so this form is something that just has some very high level information about the existing account and the address, and the new facility owners high level information as well. And so that will need to be returned back to PHI. And once that's returned, if filled out correctly and acceptably, then the kind of product that we will provide back to you as PHI is a countersigned version of that form that we will, provide for you to have for your records that acknowledges the change in facility ownership. So, and with that, I have one more process update after this, if you can go ahead to the next slide. So for this slide, this is really a request for information and a heads up of an upcoming additional field that will be required in the near future during the application process. So our team, in the coming days after this webinar, we'll be sending out an email with a Microsoft form requesting contact information for an individual that can represent the account or the application, and specifically looking for someone that can be on site in the event of an operational emergency to perform any emergent operational actions that are needed. And so the reason we're asking for this, the goal of and the purpose here, is to provide our internal monitoring and controls team. So we refer to them as our operational control center. That does the day-to-day monitoring and controls of grid operations. They do so on a 24/7 basis to make sure that we deliver safe and reliable power to all of our customers. So that team is ultimately the main receiver of this contact information, so that they can quickly and efficiently get in contact with this person that can be on site at any time of the day, so that in the event of the emergent action, we can resolve it quickly. So that is all I have for you, and I believe up next is the engineering update.
Hi, good afternoon. We can go to the next slide, please. So I'll reintroduce myself. Larry mentioned a lot of what you'll hear again, but I just wanted to spend a few moments talking about our organization and what we're striving to accomplish. And then we'll spend a few minutes talking about some more technical things that arose out of some of the questions we received. So my name is Ranjit Saki. I'm Senior Manager for Engineering and Design in Larry's organization. My team is responsible for the engineering and design and project management of the DER interconnection project across PHI. So we oversee Atlantic City Electric, Delmarva Power and Light, and Pepco within our footprint. I'll spend a few moments talking about kind of our overall goals, and then introduce you all to some names of some key players on my team that many of you will get familiar with in the future. So like Larry mentioned earlier, one of the things we're going to be working on is consolidating the interconnection studies into our group. So the technical review, the feasibility studies, as they refer to sometimes, will reside within our team. So some of you may have been working with a couple of our different departments within our organization, but we're hoping to gain some efficiencies by consolidating that, and the engineers on my team will be taking on kind of that full scope and be able to kind of shepherd the project through that phase of the project. And we are in the process of hiring and onboarding those engineers as we speak. So hopefully you get to see some of the fruits of that in the near future. Similarly, my team will have the project management function that was separate from engineering in the past. So we're hoping to gain some synergies by having our project managers and engineers all work under my department to kind of improve the process and improve your experience as developers. We're hoping to, optimize the interconnection study timelines and project execution timelines by that organizational shift, and even improve our accuracy and transparency when it comes to cost estimates for any upgrades on DR projects. So I do want to spend a few minutes just introducing like the org structure that we have. I will have 4 engineering managers on my team and 1 manager that will oversee the project management and customer engagement on my team. So I'm going to start with the box to the very right. So, first, my name is at the top, overseeing the PHI operations in this space. And to the right, we have Rainer Dutez, who will be overseeing the project management and customer engagement for our entire team across ACE, Atlantic City Electric, Delmarva Power and Light, and Pepco. And then we will have 4 engineering managers on my team, or we already have 4 engineering managers on my team. So I'm going to go left to right. Nayfall will oversee the engineering for our Pepco Maryland footprint. Diane Umiku will be the manager for engineering for Pepco DC. Bob Stanfield is our Atlantic City Electric engineering manager. And Corey Buxton will be his counterpart for Delmarva Power and Light. So I just wanted you to get familiar with those names. Those leaders are filling positions in their groups now with engineers and project managers. So you'll hopefully get familiar with them and their team members as you work through any projects in those respective jurisdictions. So that was an introduction to kind of our overall mission and org structure. Next, I do want to introduce you all to one of our team members, Corey Buxton, who will actually walk through some of the technical considerations that we pulled out of the many questions we received to hopefully answer a lot of them in kind of the presentation format. So I'll hand over to you, Corey.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Corey Buxton. I'm Manager of Design Engineering supporting Delmarva Power. We did have a number of technical questions that came in, so I wanted to take a moment to try to answer some of those. I think the solar and battery question came in regarding how is GPC reviewing solar and battery applications to exclude the battery KW in calculations when they're set to non-export. So we do have a process for that, where we have kind of 4 conditions. If you have a battery both set to non-export or export, and then PV with battery, either non-export or export. And there are 3 tests that we can run under those conditions. So for the standalone battery with non-export, we don't run the secondary voltage rise test or the transformer reverse power test, but we do run the voltage fluctuation test. And then the standalone battery set to export, we run all the tests. And again, with PV plus storage non-export, we run the PV test only on secondary voltage rise and transformer reverse power. And then we also run the voltage fluctuation test. And then lastly, the PV and storage with export. We run the secondary voltage rise test and the transformer reverse power test on both the PV and the battery, and then also run the voltage fluctuation test. So it kind of spells out in that, how we handle each case and how we are able to exclude when non-export is the situation. We'll go to the next slide. So we had a couple of questions that came in around inverters and telemetry, and specifically with respect to IEEE 1547-2018 compliant inverters. There's one question that asked about why a separate telemetry panel was required, and another question that just mentioned that new inverters were being required to be compliant and how we were going to use the feature set on these compliant inverters. So I guess the telemetry can be a little complex if you move to the next slide. And so I tried to sort of depict some of the common setups specifically for like a net metered application where we do not have a utility recloser acting as the telemetry platform for the generator. So that for all current sizes at 1 megawatt or above, we do require telemetry. And if it's a standalone kind of just pure export generator where we're not behind the meter, we do use a recloser as a point of interconnection. They can be used both for secondary or primary interconnected, pure export generators. And the recloser that we provide does provide the full telemetry that we require for remote disconnection and monitoring, power flow, amps, things like that, voltage. It's the situation where we have a behind the meter telemetry that gets a little bit more complex, and we do need a telemetry cabinet in that case. So I wanted to speak a little bit about IEEE 1547-2018. Most of the inverters that are compliant with that kind of choose a protocol, and most of them do not have DNP3 as a supported communications protocol. They use Sunspec or Modbus or some other ones. But even if you were to purchase one that did have native DNP3 communications capabilities, you're still going to have multiple inverters that need to be aggregated. The data needs to be aggregated together before it's tied into the utility SCADA. And that's kind of where this, automation, there's essentially an automation controller like a SCL RTAC, and that's a Schweitzer Engineering Labs RTAC device. And those are usually, that's one of the ones we recommend, although you can choose any one that you want. It doesn't have to be that particular model. But, this device is basically performing two main functions. It's translating the native communications from the inverters to DNP3, which is what the utility uses for its SCADA. It's also, again, aggregating and scaling that data from all the inverters to be able to pass through over to our telemetry cabinet. And our telemetry cabinet basically contains a proprietary radio and an antenna and a power source for us. And that automation controller is connected in generally by Ethernet to that telemetry cabinet, where we go ahead and convert over to DNP3 so that we can tie in our SCADA communications. So, kind of to summarize, why that telemetry cabinet's needed, particularly for behind the meter applications, that's basically it. The aggregation of the data from all of the inverters, and then the translation from whatever native communications protocol is being used over to the DNP3 protocol that we require. All right, next slide. Just give you a little bit of background on some recent history. I'm assuming with some procurement delays regarding the building of the telemetry cabinets. I understand that might have been a pain point, and it's something that we're looking to improve on. So essentially, we're gonna, our teams are going to be providing additional oversight of long lead material to support the building of the telemetry cabinets and the pre-assembly. And we're also going to be streamlining processes associated with coordination of the telemetry programming, testing, and integration. And I think by the end of Q3, we'll definitely see some synergies and improvements that are going to improve that process for the developers out there. The final slide I have, there was a question regarding protection schemes for medium voltage solar PV. What's required? So I put this little diagram together. Essentially, if you want to read it kind of right to left, our medium voltage utility feeders on the right there. First thing you'll see that we install for this type of installation would be a recloser. And that recloser, as I mentioned before, is going to be pole mounted, and it's going to provide all the telemetry that we require for the PV installation or DR installation. And so it's going to provide the amps, volts, and it's going to give our OCC, our operating center, a means of disconnect where they can remote trip and remote close that recloser. Following the recloser, we have a medium voltage primary meter that could either be pole mounted or pad mounted. And then we kind of cross the line over into customer owned equipment. Typically we ask, typically customers will provide a gang operated disconnect switch so that the medium voltage system can be isolated from, the PHI owned system, depending on what utility within PHI we're talking about. Often developers will install a recloser. They're not required, but many developers have a recloser. And if that recloser is installed, we'll typically, from an engineering standpoint, want to work to coordinate that recloser with our utility recloser. Obviously, the utility recloser is looking in. So, from our perspective, the generator is the load. So if there is a fault between the reclosers, our recloser could react and trip to it. And so anything beyond, on sort of the generator side of any private recloser, we wouldn't want to respond to that. And so if you do have a recloser, fusing, we would want to coordinate the reclosers on that situation. And then you've got obviously private metering. You've got your private transformer, step down transformer, and inverters on the customer owned side. But from a protection standpoint, this is typically what you will see, for a medium voltage interconnection. So again, if anybody's got any follow-ups, feel free to throw them in the chat. But other than that, that's all I have today. Thank you.
Hi, that's quite a transition to now that you're installed and in service, we go to the billing side of everything, the customer billing as well as facility billing. My name is Diane Goff. I'm the manager of Community Solar Billing, and just want to talk a few things on what we call the subscription management or the billing component. So I know on the last call, which I attended because I was in Delaware Regulatory at the time, we talked about the upcoming implementation of our portal. And we want to acknowledge that we had some issues keeping it in sync with our billing system. We've been working through those or largely in our past, and just want everyone to know that, we are aware of them. We're working on everything. We did have office hours and people asked why we didn't continue them. What we found was after a month or so, we started getting into specific questions for facilities and felt the better way was to have ad hoc meetings specific to those facilities or those SOs. So if there are them, and you need meetings on a periodic basis or one-off, just send the inquiries into our subscription management mailbox. We do monitor it and we try to respond to all of the questions in there. And if we're glad to have meetings if it's necessary, we're not shying away from that. We just didn't feel the office hours was the appropriate method. Some of the features that we discussed in last year that still aren't fully implemented are the allocation reports, but our team is sending those every month. So you should be receiving them around mid-month. You should be receiving the May ones this week. And the historical usage requests, we have been providing a workaround until you can go in and request them yourself in the portal and receive them in the portal. We aim to have a 5 business day turnaround on the manual process, but once we implement the historical usage in the portal, it'll, be more instantaneous where you request it and then can go and retrieve it. Next slide, please. We know that there, whoops, I think you went to. utility consolidated billing. We did implement this in New Jersey in January, and we did have some delay in the initial payments to those facilities and are working through the reconciliation of the subscriber fees. We're working to work through these issues. We also want to acknowledge that the Maryland rules are changing, and we will have the consolidated billing where we will charge for the subscriber fee or charge on the customer's bill and then remit that directly to the community solar site. And that will be implemented in January 2026. Next slide, please. Then the other one, Maryland House Bill 1036 had a number of components, and there will be some information in the appendix when we send the deck out on some of the ones more in progress, but I do want to talk about the impact of billing. And starting in July, we will no longer be paying for the unsubscribed energy on a monthly basis, and we'll begin banking any of the subscribed energy. So this will apply to the June host meter reads that we allocate in July. That information will be tracked by month. And then as far as allocating that banked unsubscribed energy, we're still working through the exact details of and mechanics of how that will work. But the CSEGs will be able to allocate the unsubscribed energy to a selected portion of their active subscribers on a quarterly basis. If you want to allocate the June host reads, you would have to allocate all of that usage in 1 month and give us a list of accounts and the KWH to be allocated. We'll, be letting you know exactly where to do that and how that will be communicated. But we do intend that the first month this would occur would be on the customer's October bills. So the information would need to be sent to us by September 15th. And again, we'll have more information that we'll send to all the Maryland community solar sites prior to that. And Denise, I think I'd turn it back to you at this point.
Yes, we're actually moving over to Reiner to address a couple of the FAQs.
Okay. Next slide, please. So prior to the meeting, we did reach out to developers for questionnaires on additional questions that we wanted the team to be prepared for and answer. In the interest of time, we'll just hit high level on some of the questions that revolve estimates, timing of applications, and also some of the project timelines as well. So with respect to any upcoming changes in law that would affect SRECs today, we are not aware of any changes in law that will affect SRECs at this time. If there's something specific in that question that's impacting a direct project of one of the members in the audience, we welcome that so that we can do a little bit more investigation to prepare for the response. Please provide any details on PEPCO's recent pilot for non-export and limited export PV systems. PHI is not aware of any such pilot, but to Corey's presentation earlier, some of the technical recommendations, if there's something that we need to add or adjust to reflect the non-export limited export PV systems, again, we're open to making a revision based on what the market needs are. Will we be able to stop filling out the battery applications since CTG has a battery section? So as of 2022, we no longer accept paper applications and it's entirely done online via CTG. In CTG, we do have the capabilities to enter battery specifications. For additional guidance on how to do that, we can certainly work with the developers or the contractors of those who are filling out the applications directly. For sizing system with ACE accounts, the applications are reviewed based on kilowatt hour production that's estimated. Each time we are oversized, we are told to reduce to a certain AC rating. What is the formula used here so we know that our systems are not oversized? The calculations listed in our tariff, and it's a calculation that's based on the historical 12-month period specific to ACE. Other jurisdictions have other requirements, but in this case, we are looking at the 12-month average for that specific customer generator. Next slide, please. So with respect to timing, how long does GPC have to review the Part 2 application before moving to the meter department? Is there a set review period so we aren't restarting on a 20-day clock to PTO when GPC finds an error on day 17? So we've done some internal process adjustments that was talked about earlier with Larry at the head of the call. But to answer the question directly, if an error is found on day 17, that's typically going to occur after the metering group has already done the review. We, for the most part, estimate the initial 5 days for the GPC SPOC to perform the cursory review before handing it off to the meters group to either exchange the meter, make a request for a meter reprogram, or validate that the meter is working. In which case we might roll out a truck roll in the event that any one of those three things fail. From that, it will go back to the GPC group if a, I'll say denial or request for more information hasn't already been made, or part 2 incomplete. For GPC to then have 5 days to do the task. So we're looking at 5 days on the front end for GPC, 10 days for the metering group, and another 5 days at the end. If something occurred in that timeline, we do have to go back to the start to make sure the BPEM, the internal request to make any of those steps happen, is validated and executed, and we have all the documentation to support it before moving on to the in-service step. Next slide. So with respect to timelines and cost estimates, we did receive a number of questions regarding PHI timelines and cost estimates. Again, at the top of the call, we did list some of the regulatory requirements for acknowledgements, approval to install, and permission to operate. How to better project when an engineering study will start. So engineering studies typically occur after the tech review is completed, and we've identified that a study is required. The definition for when a study is required is listed in the specific regulation for each one of the regions. Our study fee will initially begin the moment the invoice for the study fee has been paid, specifically that $10,000. And then once we have payment on our end, we then have the resources to allocate to the PMOC or the EOC assigned to that task to perform the study. And in most regions, studies will take an average of 4 to 5 months. Obviously, the greater the complexity of the project, the longer the study may occur, especially if there's substation level upgrades that are included as part of the study. Then DPL has been extremely slow on providing interconnection cost estimates. Do you expect this to improve? Now, with the centralization of the org, we do expect timelines to improve. Right now, once the engineering study is complete and we hand off the information to the estimate team, there's an average 45 days for that estimate team to provide the estimates and us to have a turnaround time back to the developer. So when the study is performed, we get the additional 45 days to the estimate team that has a portfolio of projects, not just with solar, but with other areas of the business as well. That 45-day completion rate has a 99% success rate. So once we receive the estimates, we then include it into the engineering study and then can provide that to the developers. We are looking at ways to improve that process where we can maybe provide the studies of the results of the facility study, aka engineering study, without the cost estimates, just so that we can have that open line of communication with some of the upgrades that are required, and parallel to the estimate team performing their 45-day process. Next slide, please. Okay.
Thanks, Reiner. As we're nearing the end of our hour, this is Denise Senecal. I'm the Customer Insights Manager, and so my organization's focused on improving the developer and customer experience. You will receive a survey from me asking you your perceptions of the webinar and any feedback that you have on the webinar or additional questions. We will respond to questions that we received in the chat, and we will be sending out these presentation slides as well. So I'd like to just close and thank you all for attending today. Have a good afternoon.